time now for French Connections, our weekly look at the intricacies of life here in France with Solange Mougin. Hi, Solange.
Hi, Judy.
This week, you're focusing on politeness in France and some of the basic rules of greeting one another.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the sort of stereotype of French people being rude and why some people feel that way. Now, personally, I think the idea comes from, in part, of certain French frankness or bluntness, but also a misunderstanding of certain unspoken rules in France. But before we get to those sort of cultural norms, I thought we'd break down first whether the French people think of their fellow patriots as rude. And some, well, they definitely do.
Ne pas savoir dire bonjour, merci. Enfin, les bases qu'on apprend des enfants, on les rouspète et on les reprend s'ils ne le font pas et on n'est même pas capable de le faire.
La politesse, ça ne coûte rien, c'est un minimum.
Now, a recent poll ranked France's cities according to how impolite their residents are. The 1,500 people polled found that Toulouse, Strasbourg, and Rennes are the politest, and the rudest are Lyon, Marseille, and Nice. And there's actually been a viral video by an American influencer about how lonely she felt in Lyon and that France made her cry.
Aww.
Yeah, poor thing. Now, surprisingly, Paris did not come in number one, but actually fourth, this despite being the largest city. The questionnaire also showed that 68% of the French people polled said that they agreed with this tourist stereotype that the French people are rude.
And it also seems like many French people are just disappointed that a certain type of éducation or civility isn't really respected.
Yeah, morality or civility classes in French schools, which included lessons in politeness and in values. Well, they were first introduced in the 1880s, but they were done away with after 1968. They have seeped back in to a certain degree, but still, it is a pretty touchy subject, as we're about to see.
S'il vous plaît, merci, bien se tenir. Oui. Oui, tout ça, et c'est intéressant tout ça?
Non.
Now, for etiquette experts, today's rules and references are constantly changing, as they did during the French Revolution, when certain language basics like the vouvoiement, the vous form, the more formal, polite way of addressing someone, well, it actually went out the window.
On interdit le vouvoiement pratiquement sous peine de mort, puisque ceux qui continuent de vouvoyer les autres, ou les appeler monsieur ou madame par exemple, risquent d'être considérés comme suspects et donc de passer devant les tribunaux. Bref, la politesse devient littéralement, est pénalisée.
Okay, one thing we really have to talk about, Solange, is the word bonjour, because greeting someone correctly is really key to starting off on the right foot here in France.
It really is. Not saying hello is considered rude in many cultures, but in France, it really is a must. So here's a 101 for sort of class for beginners. You enter a shop, you say bonjour and merci au revoir when you leave. You do this even if you don't want to be bothered while you're shopping. It is important to note, though, that in Paris, some people don't do this. In elevators, even if they are filled with strangers, you enter and you say bonjour upon coming in, and you say bonne journée or have a good day when you leave the elevator. Same goes for cashiers and baristas and waiters. You say bonjour before ordering, and this is very, very important. If you do not speak French, make sure that that first word is bonjour, and then you can go on into your own language. Needless to say, these building blocks, well, they have these building blocks of politesse, they are instilled in children at a very, very early age.
Moi, je dis à mes enfants que ce sont des portes. Voilà, qu'un bonjour, ça ouvre des portes, qu'un merci, ça ouvre des portes, et que ne pas dire ces petits mots-là, ça enferme beaucoup.
Ça sert sans doute à améliorer les relations entre les êtres humains, peut-être. Ça peut vous aider à faire ça, sans doute. Donc voilà. Avec les filles aussi, ça peut aider.
Now, there are also other ways of saying hello in French. In addition to bonjour, which literally translates to good day, there is bonsoir, which is good evening. The rule is that after 6 p.m., you say good evening. But here, too, this can sort of create sort of awkward interactions, as can hello again, re-bonjour. And then there is the informal salut. It can also be used as goodbye. And then there is coucou. It is not slang for baby talk or referring to someone as cuckoo crazy. Rather, it just refers to the sound that the birds make.
I love saying coucou. All right, there's another very, very French way of saying hello. That, of course, is la bise.
Yes, and other nations do this loud smack on the cheeks, but nonetheless, it is ever so French. But it has not always been that way.
Au Moyen-Âge, seule la noblesse s'embrasse sur les lèvres, ici le roi de France et le roi d'Angleterre. Au XIVe siècle, la bise recule, grandes épidémies obligent. Le baiser revient après la Première Guerre mondiale. Baise-main dans la bonne société, béco sur la joue. dans les milieux populaires.
Now, plug here to our dear Flo Vilmanot. She has done some excellent French Connections episodes on the complicated rules of the bise with maps about what regions do 1, 2, 3, or 4 kisses and whether to start on the right or on the left.
That is so confusing. La bise, of course, during COVID was scaled back a little bit. Is it coming back, do you think?
Well, there has been a sort of ebb and flow for these kisses for centuries, namely during pandemics, the plague and COVID, for example. Now, today, la bise is still around among friends and family, but it is not as common as it once was, especially at the office. Now, it depends on the workplace, but if la bise is out, well, then the handshake and also le check is increasingly in. This is our word du jour. Now, le check is a fist bump, and it has become, like in other cultures, a common form of greeting, namely among young people.
And Solange, just to wrap up, one last rule for us, which can be a little confusing for our guests who are here in France in January.
Yeah, it is the French use of Happy New Year. We're all familiar with the tradition of wishing everyone a bonne année or Happy New Year at the stroke of midnight. But here in France, well, the rules are a bit more complicated than that. You're supposed to wish people bonne année until the 31st of January, but only once, and only the first time that you see the person. So in big offices like ours, there is a lot of keeping track to make sure that you have wished everyone health and happiness in the new year.
Oh, it's good to know, Solange. Thank you so much for trying to make that all clear because it is very, very confusing. Solange Mougin with this week's French Connections. Don't forget, if you have other questions for Solange, you can always head over to our website, France 24, or reach out to her on social media.